This podcast is brought to you by Dr. Kirk Elliott, PhD. In an uncertain economy, if you're looking for wealth management solutions and financial advice, go to kirkelliottphd.com and make an appointment today. Coming up, I'll examine Trump's New York case through the lens of the laughing judge. I'll reflect on Attorney General Merrick Garland's interview with 60 Minutes. Georgia State Senator Colton Moore joins me. We're going to talk about his efforts to hold Fulton County DA Fani Willis accountable and the pushback he's getting. And Mike Lindell is going to check in with me to talk about how American Express canceled the MyPillow account. Hey, if you're listening on Apple, Google, or Spotify, or watching on Rumble, please subscribe to my channel. This is the Dinesh D'Souza Show.
Needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza Podcast.
Donald Trump has come out swinging against I'm going to call him the laughing judge. And I say this because I don't know if you saw that little scene where in the courtroom, you have Judge Engoron, this is the judge in New York, presiding over the Trump finances case where he claims that Trump is guilty of fraud because he overvalued his assets. You see this guy kind of taking off his glasses and sort of posing and smiling for the camera. And you can tell he's having a grand old time because this is in some ways, he's in a position to kind of bury the hatchet, if you will, in Donald Trump, financially speaking. And you can tell he relishes the opportunity. This is a leftist ideologue. And Trump is out of control. I mean, he goes berserk on this guy. I'm now quoting, "This is a judge that should be disbarred. This is a judge that should be out of office. This is a judge that some people say could be charged criminally for what he's doing. He's interfering with an election." So harsh rhetoric. I'm not sure it's wise for Trump himself to say all these things, but I can kind of understand his indignation because this whole case is downright preposterous. It all started with Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, campaigning that I will prosecute Trump. She runs for office saying, if you elect me, this is what I'm going to do. Then she spends 5 years trying to find something that he did wrong. Let's look at this. Let's look at that. Let's look at this. Let's look at that. And finally she goes, well, I can't find anything. Well, you know what? Let's file a civil lawsuit. I can't get this guy on anything criminal, but maybe I can get him on a civil lawsuit. And the civil lawsuit is overvaluing his properties. Now, what's the evidence that he did that? Well, the main witness against Trump is, in fact, a convicted felon and admitted liar, Michael Cohen. So Michael Cohen is Trump's former attorney. They had a major falling out. Cohen, I believe, pleaded guilty, if I remember. In any event, he served time. And now he's given a deposition, which I guess is going to be a summary of what his testimony is going to be. And let me go through this deposition a little bit here. He says about Trump, let's say he was worth $6 billion. Well, he wanted to be higher on the Forbes list. And he then said, I'm actually not worth $6 billion, I'm worth $7 billion. In fact, I think it's actually now worth $8 billion with everything that's going on. So Alan and Alan is the guy who was the head of the Trump company, were tasked with taking the assets, increasing each of those asset classes in order to accommodate that $8 billion number. Now, in a sense, this claim is rooted in something that is true, which is to say that a lot of times business guys, and Trump is a very competitive guy, want to be high up on the Forbes rich list. You know, what were you last year? Well, I was number 7, but I'm now I'm number 3. So Trump is trying to apparently say that he's worth a lot of money. But let's remember that when you're valuing assets, you're not just valuing tangible assets. It's not just a matter of, hey, listen, let me take my cars and my hotels and my golf course and let me look at the value of those things. That's part of it. But there's another asset that Trump has, and you have to say that he has it in spades compared to almost anyone else, and that is a reputational asset. In other words, normally when you talk about a guy on the Forbes list, I mean, with the exception of a handful, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, a lot of those other guys, if you see their names, you're like, who's this guy? I've never heard of him. And it turns out this guy may be the founder of a plastics company or the founder of this or that. But the point is, what is their reputational value? Well, they may have some local reputational value in the plastics industry. But Trump has a huge, I would say, global reputation, and that is a way of valuing his properties also. Why? Because it's not the same thing to go to any old golf course as opposed to the Trump golf course. I know this, for example, with movie premieres. You can have a movie premiere anywhere. Oh, yeah, we're going to have a movie theater premiere at a theater, then we're going to go across the street, and we're going to celebrate, have an after party, basically at a kind of sports bar, as opposed to we're going to have our movie premiere at Mar-a-Lago. And then everybody's like, I want to come. So this is what we mean by reputational value. So something that is normal in business, which is to say you value yourself by looking at the core value of your assets, and then you take into account intangible assets. Somehow Michael Cohen is acting like this is something that is nefarious and invidious, and this is criminal, or at least this is a form of business deceit on the part of Trump. Business deceit for what? Well, Trump took loans from banks. He paid the loans back. He paid the interest. There's no one's claiming that Trump defaulted on the loan. So the whole thing is just downright ludicrous. And yet it is just one more effort, one more arrow in the quiver of the left, one more effort to get Donald Trump. In this sense, it is election interference. Let's do whatever we can to keep this guy off the ballot in 2024. Debbie and I are on a great health journey, but we still struggle to eat enough fruits, veggies, and fiber, and guess what? We got to do that. And lucky for us, we discovered Balance of Nature. What better way to get all your fruits and veggies plus fiber than with Balance of Nature? This is Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule, so easy to take, made from fresh, whole produce. The produce is powdered after an advanced vacuum cold process, which stabilizes the maximum nutrient content. And this is Balance of Nature's Fiber and Spice, a proprietary blend of fiber and 12 spices for overall and digestive health. Join Debbie and me, start your journey to better health right now. Call 800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com. You'll get 35% off your first preferred order by using discount code AMERICA. Again, it's balanceofnature.com or call 800-246-8751. Get 35% off your first preferred order by using discount code AMERICA. I told Debbie I want to do a segment on updates, and she's like, updates? Updates of what? Turns out I'm going to give you 3 kind of unrelated updates, but they all tie into things that either I'm doing or that I've been talking about. The first is a movie update. The second is a Jamal Bowman update. This is the congressman who pulled a fire alarm, that guy. And the third is a Kevin McCarthy, Matt Gaetz update. So let's start with the movie update. We just released our official trailer last night. And if you haven't seen it, well, you got to just go see it right now. If you're watching on Rumble, it's right up on Rumble. It's also at the top of my Twitter feed, my X feed, and it's on all my other social media platforms. Now, we released a teaser earlier, which is nothing more than a kind of a short glimpse of the film. The trailer is really the main kind of, you can say, the main thing that sells the film. And when you see it, it'll give you chills, because you begin to realize that this stuff is happening all around us. And what the movie does is it pulls it all together in a very powerful way. Think of it. There are a lot of people who are going to say, well, I'm not Trump, and I didn't go inside the Capitol, so I pay my taxes. Am I going to be affected by the police state, Dinesh? Is the FBI, am I at risk that they might come breaking in my door? And the theme of this movie is, yes, you are. Don't be clueless about this. There is a real danger that we are all in, and there is also a limited time to shut down the police state, because once the jaws of the police state snap shut, it's very difficult then to get out of it. So this is more than a movie, it's a cause. And by the way, in addition to the theaters, we have hundreds of theaters. But there are some people who are like, well, the theater is 30 miles away or 60 miles away, so I can't make it to the theater. And my point is, you know what? Don't worry about it, because we are also offering, this is on October 27th, Friday, a virtual movie premiere. It's a virtual red carpet premiere. We're doing it out of a fantastic studio in Las Vegas. By the way, we did the same thing with 2000 Mules, and it's going to be some incredible live music, the screening of the film, and a live Q&A with me and Dan Bongino to follow. So a very unique event. It's like you being there, and we're selling tickets on the website. So the website is policestatefilm.net, policestatefilm.net. That's the one-stop shop to get tickets either for theaters or for the virtual premiere. All right, let me turn to Jamal Bowman. Here's a guy who acts like he didn't know he was pulling the fire alarm. He's trying to get out the door. No, he knew exactly what he was doing. And here's the key point. Here's a guy who is going to get away with this, I believe. He's not going to be charged, even though he should be charged. And think about it. In the case of January 6th protesters who were accused of obstruction, many of them were not. What is the underlying law that they were breaking? Normally, when you're charged with obstruction, you're trying to obstruct something. Well, what's the something? What is the act that you do that is illegal? Is it just being there? Or in the case of Jamal Bowman, there is an act, and that is he wanted to stop the vote. He wanted to delay the vote. And so his idea of delaying the vote is force the evacuation of the building. That was his motive. So he has the motive. He commits the act. The act is on the face of it. His explanation makes absolutely no sense. By the way, he's a former school superintendent. He knows exactly what fire alarms are. He pulled it for a purpose. And there is an underlying illegal act that he did, which is pulling a fire alarm when there is no fire. So this is a guy who should be prosecuted, but probably won't be. The January 6th guys in a similar situation should not be prosecuted because in many of their cases, there was no corrupt intent. In some cases, guys went in the building after Congress had already adjourned. So what proceeding were they obstructing? And yet they have been, and they continue to be ruthlessly prosecuted. Now let me turn to Matt Gaetz, the latest news. Matt Gaetz files motion to vacate against McCarthy. And this is the infighting that is now going on in the Republican House. I made the point yesterday. I emphasize again, very unfortunate for our side because we haven't learned, as the Democrats have, that these differences can be accommodated and managed. Part of the problem, I think, is, and I do put some blame really on all sides here, because even going back to the Reagan days, we had various species of Republicans. You had some guys who were bow-tied, clipped establishment types. Think of someone like Senator John Tower of Texas, for example, or Howard Baker, who was a senator from, I believe, Tennessee. Then you had other guys who were sort of more the hardcore fire-breathing types. And these guys were, they didn't get along. They didn't get along with the establishment types. They perhaps didn't go to dinner together. But on the other hand, they were able to work together on the Reagan agenda. And so the problem we have now is that there is sort of the sense that there are some people in the Republican Party, these guys are not even real Republicans. I'm not going to work with them. And then those guys are like, well, these people are too extreme. We're not going to work with them. And so as a result, you have this kind of friction, which you don't see on the Democratic side. And my point is, this is to our detriment. So I hope that there are in the Republican House certain responsible adult power brokers who can basically bring these camps together. I'm not taking a position, whether Kevin McCarthy should be the speaker or shouldn't be. This is not about that. What I'm actually talking about is the ability of a House, a GOP House, to meaningfully hold its majority. So you don't have Kevin McCarthy running to the Democrats to bail him out. And you don't have Matt Gaetz having to say, hey, we've got a speaker, but he's not the Republican speaker. He's really the speaker of the Democrats. Last month, the G20 announced it welcomed discussion of the effects of implementing central bank digital currencies in their countries. Central bank digital currencies could allow the government to track every purchase you make. They could even allow officials to prohibit you from purchasing certain products or easily freeze or seize part or all of your money. In essence, they could enable the government to take more control over your finances. Now, concerned Americans are diversifying their assets into physical gold with the help of Birch Gold Group. If you want a physical asset held in a tax-sheltered retirement account, you should call Birch Gold. Debbie and I are customers. We buy our gold through Birch Gold because of their expertise. Find out for yourself. Text Dinesh to 989898. They'll send you a free information kit on gold. There's no obligation, only information. Here's the easiest way to become a Birch Gold customer. If you have an IRA or 401k, maybe from a previous employer, just gathering dust, Birch Gold can help you convert it into an IRA in gold and you don't pay a penny out of pocket. Text Dinesh to 989898. Claim your free information kit on gold. Then call Birch Gold, because if digital currency becomes a reality, it's going to be nice to have some gold to fall back on. Guys, I'd like to welcome to the podcast a new guest, Colton Moore, Georgia State Senator hailing from Dade County, Georgia. Now, he was first elected as a state rep for Dade and Walker County, 2018 through 2020. And he's now state senator for District 53. He represents Northwest Georgia, Dade, Catoosa, Walker, Chattooga, and Floyd counties. In his earlier career as well, he seems like he's done a bunch of things. He was an auctioneer. He was a dump truck driver. His website, Colton Moore, Moore, coltonmoore.com. Colton, welcome. Great to have you. You are leading a crusade in Georgia to try to hold the Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, accountable. Let's start by talking about that. What do you want to hold her accountable for? In other words, in what sense has she kind of gone over the line? And what is the way to do that?
Yeah, so I've been calling for a special session of the Georgia legislature now for about a month and a week and a half or so. Now, what is a special session? Well, in the Georgia legislature, we're a part-time legislature. We only meet a certain time of the year. So in order for us to flex our legislative authority, we have to bring ourselves into session. So that's what I'm calling for, is a special session. Now, when we get to special session, what exactly do we do? Well, we as a legislature, any kid coming out of third grade government class understands we have checks and balances. So a legislature has the power of the purse. And Georgia citizens right now give Fani Willis about $3.5 million to prosecute cases. The problem is Fani Willis isn't using that to bring justice to her citizens and provide justice. Instead, she's using it to violate the Constitution and take on political prisoners, right? 18 defendants plus Donald Trump now are facing potentially the rest of their life in prison. They're going to have to spend roughly $1 million to defend themselves. And ultimately, what were they doing? They were questioning the integrity of an election. They were expressing their First Amendment rights to hold accountability to their government, and now they've been taken political prisoner. There's a lot of things that we can do in special session, not just defund this type of rogue action, but we can also investigate Fani Willis. There's a lot of questions that need answers, like why in the world did the indictment come out hours before the grand jury ever concluded?
Now, let's talk about Fani Willis's actions here, because it seems like what she's doing is she's looking at the various activities that people associated with Trump in one way or the other. And in some cases, you're dealing with people who never met Trump, didn't get any instructions from Trump, but nevertheless, they're all kind of swooped together or drawn together in a supposed conspiracy. But what is the underlying criminal act here? In other words, questioning an election, you might be mistaken, you might be wrong, but what makes it illegal?
Yeah, that's right, Dinesh. It's a novel case. I mean, this isn't something that's ever happened in American history. And for it to happen in a conservative place like Georgia is even more crazy. You would think that with poll numbers like 56% for Donald Trump, even those who don't understand the Constitution and are elected to office could be just a little bit politically savvy and say, wait just a second, maybe I should be calling for a special session. But for me, it's so much bigger than Donald Trump, Dinesh. This is about being an American, okay? And as an American, we have the First Amendment right to question the integrity and to petition our government whenever we see fit. Whether we're right or wrong, we've got that ability. So essentially what this Fani Willis is doing is she's trying these people for treason. I mean, this lady from Coffee County, I mean, this woman is a retired school teacher. She gets, I think, 3 different election results. She decides, I can in good faith and conscience turn these election results in. And now she's facing ultimately the rest of her life in jail. I mean, think about the peril that this woman is going through right now. The finances. I mean, some of these people had to mortgage their houses just to bond out. You know, and Dinesh, this is the crazy, scary part. Some of my fellow senators, they've come to me and they've said, Colton, please leave me out of this. I don't want to be involved in this in any way. I'm worried I could be charged with a crime. So we have a constitutional crisis, Dinesh, when senators are chilling their voices. They represent 200,000 people in Georgia, but those 200,000 people, they don't have representation because their senator's voice is chilled because they're worried about finding themselves in judicial peril.
I mean, talk about the way in which there was a kind of a strike back at you and an attempt to sort of push you out or marginalize you for doing this. And of course, the real strange thing is that is coming from a Republican-controlled body with a Republican governor at the helm. So first of all, what did they do to you? And then in the next segment, let's talk a little bit about the broader politics of Georgia and what's going on in Georgia.
Yeah, so they ostracized me from the caucus. They said they're no longer going to allow me to caucus with them. Now, I call them now the Rhino Caucus. What is a rhino? It's a Republican in name only. I consider myself the Republican and them the Rhino. And I think good proof of this is looking across the state. Republican GOPs across the state, whether they're in metropolis areas like DeKalb County or Fulton County, or even those, you know, down in South Georgia like Chatham or up in my district, Catoosa, they're all singing the same tune right now, Dinesh. They're all in support of me and taking action against Fani Willis. It's this elite ruling class of rhinos like our governor, like Senate leadership, who are facing so much pressure from their constituency to do something that their only option is to backlash against me. They have taken me out, but they can't seem to take Fani Willis out.
Let's take a pause. We're back with more from Georgia State Senator Colton Moore. If aches and pains are your problem, Relief Factor is your remedy. Debbie and I are living proof. We started taking Relief Factor a couple of years ago, and we've seen a huge difference in our joints. Nothing short of amazing. Aches and pains are totally gone thanks to this 100% drug-free solution called Relief Factor. How does it work? Relief Factor supports your body's fight against inflammation. That's the source of aches and pains. More than 1 million people have tried Relief Factor, and about 70%, the vast majority, have gone on to order more and become regular customers. Debbie's a true believer. She can now do exercises that for a long time she wasn't able to do. So Relief Factor has been a real game changer for her, her aunt, other members of our family, Mike here in the studio, and for many other people. You too can benefit. Try it for yourself. Order the 3-week quick start for the discounted price of just $19.95. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF to find out more about this offer. The number again to call, 800-4-RELIEF, or go to relieffactor.com. Feel the difference. I'm back with Georgia State Senator Colton Moore. You can follow him at X. It's at Real Colton Moore, or the website, Colton Moore, ColtonMoore.com. Colton, let's talk about this. Clearly in Georgia, you have it seems, I don't know if you call them, if rhinos is the right term, or a kind of Republican establishment, but it's a Republican establishment seemingly out of sync with the sentiments of the Republican base. And I'm not just talking about people who would like narrowly define themselves like, I'm a MAGA guy. You've got just the broad sweep of the Republican Party saying, we're dealing with some police state tactics here. Now, can you explain how in a democracy you can get an establishment which you would think that their election depends upon paying attention to their constituencies? How is it that they become so detached from their constituency? Who is their constituency?
Yeah, we see this a lot in authoritarian regimes across the world. Their flex of power chills voices. It makes people reluctant to speak out because they're like, I don't know. I don't want to be put into a gulag. I don't want to have a walk of shame. I don't want people to question my innocence. And therefore, their chilled voice is not used to fight against the very authoritarianism that's putting them down. And that's where we're going to find ourselves if people aren't stepping up now to make their voices even louder and to push back against this type of authoritarianism. And what's crazy and it is even my fellow senators, the ones who have the oversight power against this rogue DA, some of them in the top leadership are telling me, well, we can't do anything because, we would be interfering with the judicial system. And these are attorney senators. And I tell them, I said, take off your litigator hat and put on your senator cap for a minute and recognize that you represent 200,000 people that depend on you to put a check and balance against this type of rogue government. If not, let's just make her King Fani Willis.
I mean, this is scary stuff because what you're saying is that, initially I thought that maybe what was going on is you sort of had this almost personal feud between the governor, Brian Kemp, and Trump, and that this was sort of the fallout from that. In other words, that Brian Kemp goes, I don't like this man, Trump, and so therefore I'm not really going to help in this particular area because, you know what, I wouldn't be too unhappy if this guy was found guilty in this case. But I think what you're saying is that there are people who recognize that this is wrong and recognize that this is an abuse of power, but they're a little timid or afraid to step into the fray.
No, you're absolutely right. There's probably the majority of the people who are standing in the way right now of taking action against Fani are those who risk judicial peril in their mind. And they're weighing that out. When a senator is calling me and saying, I'm afraid to take action, Colton, please leave my name out of this, that scares me to death. I mean, I told these senators, I said, guys, we used to talk about infringements up in Washington, D.C., but we have a fascist communist regime right here in Atlanta, and we are the front lines. When they are coming after my fellow senator, that means they could come after any of us, right? For them not to recognize that is one thing, but for them to recognize it and not to take action, that's even more ridiculous.
I mean, what's so tragic is that it is the legislature that has the power to make laws. So ultimately, laws originate in the legislature, and the job of the executive branch, and this, by the way, includes the district attorney and attorneys general and secretaries of state, everybody, is to carry out the laws made by the legislature. But you seem to have a situation where the legislature is terrified of the executive. I mean, in a way, I can see that George Soros gets a huge bang for his buck if he's able to put in DAs that can terrify the legislature into not stepping in when there's an abuse of power.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, you've got, a lot of legislators who are passing the buck off to unelected bureaucrats and saying, well, a prosecutorial commission can take care of her. Well, it's like, gentlemen and ladies, we created this prosecutorial commission. We gave it subpoena power to investigate. We inherently have these same powers ourselves, or we couldn't grant them to a commission. So let's go ahead and get the job done right away. We have the power to do it.
Very interesting. Guys, I've been talking to Colton Moore, Georgia State Senator, District 53. You can follow him at X at Real Colton Moore, or his website, coltonmoore.com. Colton, it's a battle. I'm sure it's going to keep going on, but I want to commend you for your efforts to try to bring some sanity to Georgia and by extension to the rest of the country. Thank you very much.
Dinesh, thank you so much for having me. If any of your listeners would like to go to specialsession.com, they can sign on to the official petition there. Specialsession.com.
Awesome. Guys, with my new movie coming out this month, this is a great time to check out and join my Locals channel. I post a lot of exclusive content there, content that's censored on other social media platforms. On Locals, you get Dinesh Unchained, Dinesh Uncensored. You can also interact with me directly. I do a lively week Q&A every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic is off limits. I've also uploaded a bunch of films to Locals, documentaries, feature films, my films, films by other independent producers. It's like Dinesh's movie page, and you can check it out. As you know, Police State coming out the end of this month. I'll be giving you the inside scoop, also extra footage from the film on locals. If you're an annual subscriber, you get all this content you can stream and watch for free. Check out my channel. It's dinesh.locals.com. I'd love to have you along for this great ride again. It's dinesh.locals.com. Who is the face of the police state? Well, some would say it's Biden. Some might say it's Obama. A pretty good candidate is Merrick Garland, and I'm going to talk about Merrick Garland in a moment. I do want to emphasize that the police state is much broader than just the police agencies of the government. It's actually much broader than the government itself, because it includes elements of academia. Think about censorship, for example. Who's putting censorship into place? The government, yes, but sometimes the government doesn't go to the digital platforms. They farm it out to nonprofits, the Stanford Internet Observatory, the Virality Project, and then those guys feed it to the digital platforms. And then you got the media cheering on the censorship and reporting people that this guy needs to be censored and so on. So think of what a sprawling police state operation censorship alone is. And then you turn to all the other features of the police state and you find the same thing. Ideological indoctrination, a lot of it's coming from the government. But think about it. It's happening in the schools, the colleges. It's happening. You have ideological indoctrination coming from the healthcare industry, coming from the health authorities. So this is a private public octopus. But nevertheless, a kind of very good stand-in for all of this would be one Merrick Garland, who was just interviewed by 60 Minutes, and I watched most of it, not the whole thing, and picked up a couple of themes. First of all, you just had to shake your head every time the guy goes, "We are impartially enforcing the law. I'm not for Democrats. I'm not for Republicans. No, I don't take my cues from the White House." I mean, the bald-faced lies. You have to be a liar of the caliber of a Goebbels. I mean, I think back to Goebbels' famous quote, which has stuck with me through a biography I read, I think Kurt Ries's biography, where he says, propaganda is not to be judged based upon whether it's true or false. That has nothing to do with it. Propaganda is good if it works. In other words, if the lie is successful, if people believe it, great propaganda. And all other propaganda is bad. That doesn't work. That doesn't convince, regardless of whether it's true or false. And I think Merrick Garland is sort of a disciple of Goebbels in this respect. Now, and the funny thing about this is that Merrick Garland in the interview talks about, "Oh, I've lost some relatives in the Holocaust, and you know what? This has given me a real respect for the rule of law." As if the one lesson that he's learned from the experience of his relatives is that you got to stick to the rule of law. I think it's much more likely that Merrick Garland looked at what happened, and I'm talking here not just about the Holocaust, but the prelude to the Holocaust, the whole Nazi regime. The lesson of the Nazis really is that you can identify an enemy. You can then dehumanize your enemy, the Jews. You can stigmatize them. You can ostracize them. You can try to shut down their businesses. You can prosecute them and put them in jail. And then if all else fails, you kill them. And that program, you have to say, was in a terrifying way successful. Why? Because basically Hitler broke the back, destroyed the Jews in Germany. Even now, there's a relatively small number of Jews in Germany. The Jews had to flee. Of course, a lot of them were killed. And so I think the real lesson that Merrick Garland has taken is that this sort of police state tactics can be effective. And so he's like, listen, in a different environment here in America, I can then implement these same tactics. What do? I identify these patriots, these Christians, these conservatives. I stigmatize them. I dehumanize them. I act like even trivial things they did. This guy walked into the Capitol, looked around. Somehow he's trying to overthrow the government. He's a subversive. Just exactly what the Nazis said about them. They're subversives. They're trying to overthrow the country. And so we've got to be aware of this menace and we've got to destroy them. And that really is Merrick Garland's message, except in this case, it's not in the fiery tones of Hitler. It's in the sort of measured tones of a guy who acts like, I'm doing nothing more, guys, than implementing the law. Guys, I got Mike Lindell calling into the podcast. You're going to see him right after this ad. So it's kind of fun for me to be talking about MyPillow and then bring on Mr. MyPillow himself. Mike Lindell has a passion to help you get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop with the pillows. He also created the Giza Dream bed sheets. These sheets look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep, which is crucial for your overall health. Mike found the world's best cotton called Giza. It's ultra soft and breathable, also extremely durable. And Mike's latest deal, sale of the year, for a limited time, 50% off the Giza Dream sheets, marking prices down as low as $29.98, depending on the size. Go to mypillow.com and a promo code Dinesh. There you'll find not just this great offer, but deep discounts on all the MyPillow products, the mattress topper, the kitchen towel sets, and so much more. The number to call, 800-876-0227. Once again, it's 800-876-0227, or go to mypillow.com. Just don't forget to use the promo code DINESH Dinesh. Guys, you hear me talk every day about MyPillow products and how great they are, how much Debbie and I enjoy having them in our home. And here is Mr. MyPillow himself, Mike Lindell, who has been fighting on so many different fronts and really paying the price for it. Mike, welcome to the podcast. I guess the latest news is American Express. I also want to talk to you about some IRS audits, but let's start with American Express. What happened?
Well, out of the blue, I've been partners with them for, 15 years, or since 2011, 2010, and where everything we do is our American Express for is our shipping, Google AdWords, Facebook ad buys. And we had $1 million line of credit. So, if you get close to it, you pay about every 3 days to make sure you could never ever go over that limit, because if you do, it would shut down our everything. It would shut down everything. Well, what they did, out of the blue, they said, this was on about 2 weeks ago, now about 10 days, they said, we're reducing your line of credit from $1 million to $100,000. They just clipped our lifeline. It was horrific. Immediately, it shut down all of our stuff, and they said, I asked them, what are you doing this for? And they said, well, with this economy, we're doing it to a lot of different companies because we're just tightening up our risk. And I'm going, what? So what we've had to do, we had to go to try and react and go to debit cards, but there's limits on them, every bank, of $10,000. So as we do this during the day, I have to get up in the middle of the night and said, no, that's not fraud. That's not fraud. That's not fraud. It's been very hard to get through this. But when they did that, it went public, and then you have the bad media grabs it, and then that went out there, and then I had other vendors that also came in and going, well, if American Expresses do that, we should do this too, and tightening up the credit we have. So it's been a complete attack on MyPillow. It's been attacked for 2.5 years since I wanted to secure our elections, and this is where it's coming from. There's an evil motivation behind this, and they just want to take down MyPillow, and it's sad with all these our USA-made products and all my employees, and it's just terrible.
Mike, do you think that this is something that you've just got some left-wingers at American Express who go, listen, let's go target Mike Lindell? Or do you think that it's external pressure from liberal activist groups going to American Express and saying, hey, listen, we notice you haven't canceled MyPillow yet. It looks like the left has a lot of outside agitation aimed at bringing corporate America, getting them to conform to their orthodoxy.
Well, it's definitely, it could be, it's definitely one or the other. It's definitely that group that's the attack on our country, and this goes back to I've lost all the box stores, the shopping channels. We've lost, they've attacked us trying to stop my voice. I've had lawfare against me, lawfare against MyPillow, where they've all been sued, so it could be both. It could be one or the other or both. American Express, you got to realize, just like the box stores, it was their number one selling product in history, MyPillow, in every box store in this country, from Walmart to Bed Bath to the shopping channels. And with American Express, we're probably one of their biggest accounts because we use it every day. And they encouraged us to do that for years because, you get points and they can charge all these other, they can charge the shipping people and they can charge, how much they charge on American Express? They're making money, huge money off MyPillow. So they didn't do it because of late payments or because they're not making a lot of money on it. So there's a hidden agenda. And I do believe that agenda is a very evil agenda, and it's driven by what you said, either groups putting pressure on them or American Express themselves. So that's where that's at.
The other thing, Mike, is you talk about the fact that the IRS is going after some of your contract employees. First of all, when did that start, and what exactly is happening on that front?
Well, there's two things that happened. This all happened, over the last 2.5 years, but the IRS audits, they were recent. And the first they came after me, auditing all these years, 19, 20, 21, 22. And this started when I actually had a supplement to give during the China virus for the United States, when I had this supplement and the government and the FDA stopped it. The FDA stopped it. So I had this deduction of $10 million worth of product I was going to give out to the country. And so they all got outdated, and I have them even in the warehouse. So the IRS came out and said, well, we don't know if you can use this deduction in that year. And I said, well, here's the outdated product. You did this to me. So that's how that started. That was a complete attack. But now recently, they've done employee withholding tax audits in 4 different states, including my home state of Minnesota. Now realize, Dinesh, I have call center. My call center isn't overseas. It's all when the China virus hit. All of these reps, almost all are working from home. These are at-home working mothers and stuff, and or fathers, and this is how they support their families. Well, they're contract labor. That's what they're contracted out. They work off commission of all these great products I have. They work off commission, and now the IRS, they step in and say, no, we're going to take that from you. You're not going to be a contract labor. And this is going on in 4 different states, and it just keeps getting worse. That was directly targeted, I believe, to take down MyPillow.
And you're saying what the IRS is trying to do is make these people, in a sense, to declare themselves as employees of MyPillow? Is that what they're trying to force them to do?
They want to declare them hourly employees, they can't function as hourly employees. They work at different times. They work their own hours, and they work when they can to either subsidize their income in this bad economy we have, or that's their only income. You can't put them on hourly. It doesn't work. They can't put on hourly because if you don't have calls coming in, they don't make any money. I'd be paying an hourly bill. It's very hard to do that. That's why all call centers across the country, you don't see Amazon, they're attacking Amazon for their big call center, and all these call centers that are overseas, and we say call centers, most are from home now. They're from home. This all shifted with what happened with the virus. It all shifted, and many people still work from home in all walks of life. But to attack these employees, I mean, it's beyond belief. And they came to me with all these concerns. So what we've just put all our stuff on sale to help them and put out their phone numbers so they can keep getting calls, and so they have some confidence why we fight the IRS on this. We're in battles with them right now and saying, you know what? These are contract people. They work from home. You've never had a problem in over 10 years. And what about all the other call center people in the country? MyPillow has been targeted.
Guys, we need to support MyPillow every which way we can, and now's the time to really rally to Mike's cause, help out his contract laborers, and get some great products, which are their sales up to 80% off. Isn't that right, Mike? Up to 80% off on different products.
One of the big ones are MyPillow 2.0. We put that on sale for $39.98, the queen size and the king size. These are the MyPillow that we improved on with adding the technology, the cooling technology and fabric. These are the ones we make at our factory. It helps them my employees too. We manufacture our MyPillow 2.0 and our beds and our toppers, our mattress topper 2.0. Not only are you getting products that help you get great sleep, but you're helping out U.S. made products. And then we still have the great deals on the other stuff. We have our 6-piece towel set, $39.98 on sale. The towels that actually work. I know you use a lot of these products, Dinesh. All our slippers on sale for $39.98. We've got our new kitchen towels in. All the kitchen towels. We put everything on sale. It's, we've been canceled out there, so there's no middlemen anymore. It's right to the consumer. And together we're going to get through this. I keep telling my employees, I said, we're going to get through this attack, and when the attacks end, we'll look back and we made it because of everyone out there. Keep on buying and helping out my employees and helping out My Pillow.
Guys, the website, as you know, mypillow.com. Use promo code Dinesh. Mike Lindell, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
I'm in section 2 of Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago. We're talking about the different groups or nations that are being targeted and then swept into the Gulag. I've talked about the religious believers. I've talked about some of the peasants. Now we're going to talk about a group called the NEP Men. And NEP is an acronym, but it requires maybe a little explanation. So when Lenin took power right at the end of World War I, he instituted sort of full communism. So nobody owned anything, the government owned everything. Well, the effect of that was to kill off incentives. Nobody was growing any crops because it's like, listen, I can't keep the fruit of my labors, I can't keep the fruit of my business. So guess what? I'm not going to sell anything. So the whole Soviet economy ground to a halt, and Lenin was like, oops, I'm an idiot. So he had to modify his policy, and so he did. He introduced some elements of capitalism under a program called the NEP. So the NEP was the backing off of Lenin and the allowing of certain businesses to operate. But then guess what? After a little while, when the economy recovered, there was a sort of a backlash against the NEP because suddenly the NEP were the greedy capitalists, even though they had been allowed, even encouraged by Lenin to restore the Soviet economy. Once they did that, they themselves became targets. Okay, now that these guys have piled on some wealth, let's go and steal it. And this is the point to remember about police states. They are massive theft operations. They are ways for a state or for the people who control a state to just loot the people. The people themselves become the targets of the theft. So here we go. From 1928 on, it was time to call a reckoning to those late stragglers after the bourgeoisie, the NEP men. The usual practice was to impose on them ever-increasing and finally totally intolerable taxes. At a certain point, they could no longer pay. They were arrested for bankruptcy and their property was confiscated. The state needed property and gold. The famous gold fever began at the end of 1929. This is the state looting the successful entrepreneurs that it itself permitted and created to a degree, but now they want to take their stuff and they do it through taxes. Once your taxes are 50%, 60%, 80%, 90%, 99%, and then you're like, I don't have anything to give you. Oh yeah, okay, well, turn over your property, turn over your business, turn over your farm. Do you have any cash? Do you have any gold? So this is the gold fever. It's not people going to California looking for gold in the hills. This is the Soviet state looting its citizens of any gold that they might have or ornaments, anything made of gold. And then he says, who was arrested in the gold wave? All those who at one time or another, 15 years before, had a private business, had been involved in retail trade, had earned wages at a craft, and could have, according to GPU's deductions, hoarded gold. Do you have gold? Maybe, but maybe not. But their point is, well, didn't you have a business like 10 years ago? Couldn't you have gotten gold then? Don't you have any gold now? So the idea is to go after people whether or not they have gold and demand that they produce gold. But it so happened that they often had no gold. They had put their money into real estate or securities which had melted away or been taken away in the revolution, and nothing remained. But, says Solzhenitsyn, the Soviet state still goes after arresting dental technicians, jewelers, watch repairmen. All were arrested, all were crammed into GPU cells in numbers no one had considered possible until then. But that was all to the good. They would cough it up sooner or later. Give up your gold, you vipers. So this is the unleashing of communist propaganda. Suddenly, you are the greedy people. Any accumulations that you have belong to us. I mean, think about it. Who are the real greedy people here? Greed is not defined as somebody earning a living or making money. Greed is defined as someone illicitly taking something that doesn't belong to you. And who's doing that? Not the so-called NEP men. Who's doing that is, in fact, the communist state, the police state. And then Solzhenitsyn turns to the independent peasants. These are known as the kulaks. I've used that term before. He talks about a multi-million wave of dispossessed kulaks. He goes, and there were so many of these people. I mean, most people in Russia were peasants, not businessmen, not even city dwellers. They were rural peasants. And so these people had to be arrested sort of by the shovelful. You had to get them in droves. And so Solzhenitsyn, they bypassed the prisons, going directly to the transit prisons and camps onto prisoner transports into the Gulag country. So these are too many people to put in prison. Normally you go to prison, kind of like a city prison or a local prison, and then you are slowly transported via train, typically to the far reaches of the country, Siberia. You now find yourself, digging rocks in the cold of Siberia. That's the Gulag. But Solzhenitsyn goes, here, they don't bother with that. Too many of these people. We don't have room for them in all the prisons. Let's just throw them on the trains right away, send them straight to the Gulag. And so, writes Solzhenitsyn, in sheer size, this tidal wave, it was an ocean, swelled beyond the bounds of anything the penal system or even an immense state can permit itself. There was nothing to be compared with it in all Russian history. It was the forced resettlement of a whole people, an ethnic catastrophe.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.